Hello, world. Good now to you. This is Amplio this weekend. Amplio. I will get that right at some point. Maybe we'll change the name of this. Who knows? I am Ryan Erickson. You probably know that if you've seen my face before. On the screen, almost in the penalty box, soon to be on the screen, is Al Shalloway. Hello, Al.
Hey there. How are you?
Hey, Good Friday. It is not Good Friday, but it is a Good Friday.
That's right.
Good way to be, good way to do. Our stated topic was about limiting beliefs,
It's
and
still
you have limiting. I kind of went a little bit provocative with it. It's like you have limiting beliefs. The good news is, you can get over them. So that's that. What is alive in you? How would you like to go, and what would you like to talk about today?
Now, was that you, me, or the audience? I wasn't clear. Actually, we'll include everybody here because I had an intention when we were talking about this in this week in Amplio. One of the things is I'm going basically not out of the country for a bit. And I was looking at starting, in fact, I did start kind of a self-study program for the people in the Amplio community of practice. That's my free uh, community where we meet weekly and we have a discussion board and all that. And I was thinking, well, it'd be interesting to kind of do a flipped classroom type style where I kind of give them some things to look at and then we discuss it. And this week, we were actually reading one or two books. I first said Goldratt's Rules of Flow, but then somebody recommended Steve Barra's Flow Engineering. Both are good intros to Agile from different angles. One's more practice oriented, I suppose. That's the Goldratt's Rules of Flow, and the other is a bit more theory, but really good stuff. Steve knows value streams really, really well. Karen Martin and he, I consider the two top experts in value streams from an Agile perspective. I'm jealous. What can I say? But I learned from them, so that's a good thing.
All right. Yeah, I already have a couple folks here saying hello, Frederick and
Hi, Frederick.
and
Hey, Tony.
and Tony and a LinkedIn user. I don't know who. Somebody else there. So we'll get him up. So
yeah,
hello, everybody. Yes.
So one of the things, though, when I was starting this self-study group, it seemed to me that what was important to start with is getting rid of the limiting beliefs you have. In other words, everybody wants to jump in and learn new stuff, but it's like the old Zen master discussion where this expert of all sorts comes in and he tells the Zen master how expert he is and all this, and he wants to learn now, from the Zen master, and the Zen master starts pouring tea in an empty teacup, and it keeps pouring and pouring, and it overflows, and the expert's looking at him dubiously, but doesn't say anything until the tea's overflowing, not only the cup, but the saucer, and is about to spill on him. He says, Zen master, don't you see your cup is full? And the Zen master says, yes, just like your brain. You've got to take the stuff out of your head that limits you. So that's why I got the idea of doing the limiting beliefs this week, at least for the ACOP and the Amplio itself. We did two other things, but and I guess one's worth talking about. One thing we did is we did a whole series we have this thing called a global positioning system based on how do you see where you are and where you need to go. And the really weird, totally almost absent in the Agile space idea, very out of the box, thinking that before you try to improve yourself, you should see where you are, doing diagnosis, and then come up with a solution based on that, instead of coming up with a predefined solution called a framework I got certified in. So that's one of the disempowering beliefs, that we don't need diagnoses. Or that's not quite a disempowering belief. It sells itself. It's more of a wrong belief that tends us to go in the wrong direction. So I was thinking about that.
Yeah, that you can find what's wrong by applying again this
it doesn't
whatever state you have, as opposed to doing observation, understanding, kind of analysis, and whether, again, we could about the semantics of it, analysis, understanding, research, ethnography, that kind of stuff, knowing where you are. So
there's no question once you get started that you can adjust and continue, but what you get started with is important. Do you take a incremental approach? Do you take a flow approach? Do you what core beliefs do you have in the whole thing? So that's why I'm starting that community for the next 3 weeks in the uncovering disempowering beliefs. And so we anyway got the GPS, which is really nice. I'm probably going to do an overview of it for the public. It's something that's in the Amplio University. It's very powerful and very cool. And I think we finally got it nailed where people understand how to use it, because it is fairly sophisticated from the consultant's point of view. See, this is the other thing. This is maybe a disempowering belief that people aren't recognizing. Oh, maybe that's another one. I'm making a list on a board that Ryan will show you in a little bit. And I keep coming up with new categories of disempowering beliefs. See, I've always thought disempowering beliefs are things that limit you, but here, let's see. So I just kind of lost what I was thinking of. This new kind of disempowering belief that you don't need to do something, I guess. Belief saying you don't need something. So anyway, so we got the GPS. That was a big thing. And then what we're starting on is a whole bunch of projects in Amplio University. I'm my mantra, my purpose, I guess you could say, well, I won't say my purpose in life, but in my business life, because I've got family. My wife will tell you in demands she's number one, and I'm happy to do that. I'm a very happy guy.
Yeah.
In my family, I've got great kids, great grandkids, and, my health and things like that. But in business, I'm really trying to do two things. And one thing is, well, the driving thing actually is one thing I'm driving from, but it causes two other things to happen. Is I've talked about it before, the technology gap. And then I look at what slows what causes this gap between what's possible and where we are. And one of them is kind of an anchor, kind of like these disempowering beliefs. They hold us back. And then the other thing is we have right now, I think, very ineffective and very expensive, ineffective training for the purpose of the purpose of continuous education. And that's why I got Amplio University. And it's a bit of an experiment that seems to be working. I've been doing it now for 2-3 years, and it's getting better. We use a different training technique. We use different ways of presenting materials and organizing materials and working together. But I feel good about that. So anyway, let me get into the topic of this, the disempowering beliefs. And let me tell you what my thoughts were this morning.
Do you want me to share that yet or not?
Yeah, you can share my screen actually, if you can, or zoom in. Oh, I got to say that. Yeah, just for this beginning. Oh, good. Yeah, just zoom into that one. Yeah, because this is the one that I started with, and things are usually more sophisticated than you initially think, or at least they are for me. I look at something and I think, oh yeah, I get that. And then it's like, wait a moment.
Yeah.
Oh, there's something else going on here. So they're disempowering beliefs because they limit our potential. They limit what we can do. Maybe instead of saying our potential, maybe I mean really, limit what we can do. So like people say, well, we're in a complex situation, so you can't get to root cause. And I say, well, no, that's not true. You can find a lot of the cause and effects that are out there. I've talked about that. And that's the kind of disempowering belief I was thinking, because if you think you can't do that, you don't look for it. Goldratt talks about this in The Choice.
Yeah. Well, I think this is also, you're talking about the having a theory. If a
a lot of
theory
this
there,
is,
you can look at what you can take the observed and make some guesses, I suppose we would say.
Yeah, and theory is really critical because, first of all, I'm not talking like, oh, that's theoretical. I don't mean that's bullshit. That's just somebody, there's theory that you haven't got evidence for and you're just presuming. And then there's theory you've got evidence for theoretically based on other theories that have been proven. I mean, there's a lot of that goes on. But there's theory where you have a lot of evidence where it's been demonstrated. And one of the theories that's been demonstrated is that without theory, people resist new ideas. I've talked about Semmelweis many times, and he had data, concrete data, had demonstrated it absolutely that not totally disinfecting your hands between surgeries or doing autopsies and working on mothers killed people, And that seems obvious to us, but now we understand germs. They didn't have a germ theory back then. There was no explanation. Nobody could explain, including Semmelweis, why this worked, and people resisted doing it. You can look at, there was a conversation this morning on paired programming, and there'll all be people who say, oh, it doesn't work, and they have all these theories about why it doesn't work. Well, I have a theory about why it does work, and I've got evidence, but people don't talk about the theory as to why it works, and there's a bunch of problems. Anyway, so one disempowering belief is that we can't see the cause and effect going on. Now, that does not mean it's deterministic. See, you can see some stuff. That doesn't mean you see everything. Goldratt never said we saw everything, but he said if you don't believe you can get at the cause effect, you'll stop looking for it. If you don't believe you can find a solution, you'll stop looking for one. See, Goldratt in The Choice attends to the human nature of Agile infinitely more than most Agile approaches do, which is weird because Agile is supposed to be about people, but then they ignore how people react to things. So maybe that's
Each
another.
individual has a worldview, has a set of theories within themselves, and understands the world in different ways. And it's implicit. You have to extrapolate that from the values and principles as opposed to it being called out.
I just came up with another one. There are disempowering beliefs that people will just learn good stuff. In other words, they're not limiting us, but this idea that, oh yeah, we can start here and people will figure it out. So anyway, as I started thinking, and you can slide a little bit to the right, not on. Yeah, I was thinking about this morning, and I came up with this one as well. Disempowering beliefs, because they point us in the wrong direction, like waterfall. Like the idea, there's this belief that we can figure everything out up front. That's a belief, but it's disempowering because now you're going the wrong way.
Yeah. Well, I think, and also it's a way of you articulate what's there and how firmly you hold on to the belief of what you find at that point and are unwilling to say things will change after that. Again, that's the historical bugaboo against the I would say the misinterpretation of Royce's approach, because Royce had iteration within the approach, and that had just been kind of taken out to say analyze, plan, design, all the phases there. So I don't think you were saying that you can know everything up front, but at least you can gather more evidence. And
let me go on the record. You cannot know everything up front. In fact, you can only see a small portion of everything up front. But if you look at what you can see, you can learn more. And it's like driving in fog. I've driven in dense fog where I could barely see anything. I didn't hit anything. I just slowed down to see as far as I could see. Mm-hmm. And then I could see the next little bit. I could see the next little bit. And it turns out that that's a poor metaphor in one way and a good metaphor in the other way. It's a good metaphor because it shows I can drive forward without hitting anybody. It's a poor metaphor because in reality, you don't have to slow down much. You just have to look near term. In other words, you can be developing as fast as you want. This idea that Lean tells you to slow down, I've never bought that. I don't slow down. I'm not lazy. What I do is I take time to look at what I can do, but that's not doing anything. In other words, you have to stop developing and do some reflection, but that's not slowing down, except unless you think developing is all there is. See, we define doing as actually building something instead of also thinking. That's an interesting thing right there.
Well, thinking while doing and constant reflection as opposed to being locked into only a periodic reflection. I think that's right.
It's like
continuous feedback and all this kind of stuff that's great to have. That's again, that is often left out of an implementation of Scrum.
I'll give an example. Something I've learned. This is a daily routine I have. So when I first wake up, I usually do. I don't always do this every day, but I usually do a little bit of meditation. I've got some kind of odd kinds of meditation. I've learned several. I know transcendental meditation, Zen meditation, and then I have this spiritual kind of meditation that my guide, I have a learning coach, life coach that I've learned. I
Mm.
really like this stuff there. So I do a little bit of meditation. Now you could say that's slowing down. I'm not doing anything, but I'm doing a lot. That clears a lot of the negative energies in my body and my limiting energies. And it's worth the 15 to 30 minutes I take doing it. I'm doing something, but I'm not doing something like work. Doing something doesn't mean you have to be working and constructing. I'm clearing out my energies. And then what I do is, well, I usually putz around a little bit, but then I go down to my office or a room in my house and I have a journal and I write in the journal for 5 or 10 minutes. Now, again, am I doing something? Am I slowing down? Depends. Is work only, is doing something only work? No, I'm doing something. What I'm doing is I'm reflecting. Now that I've kind of cleared my head, I'm reflecting on what's driving me.
Yeah.
Now, I'm a driven guy. You guys have noticed this. Just look at the LinkedIn's. A lot of the things that drive me isn't good stuff. It just
Mm.
drives me crazy, actually. I got to say this, I got to say that, or I'm upset with this, or I'm upset with this. Now, if you haven't known me for more than a year, um, yeah, very nice point. It's prepping for a flow state. That's exactly what it's doing. The first thing is I look at is I clear my head. Then I'm looking at where I'm still at and what's driving me. And then I decide, what am I going to do today? And that takes me about an hour every day. Am I doing nothing? I'm absolutely not doing nothing.
Yeah.
As I love what you just said there, Tony. I'm prepping for a flow state. I'm prepping to get productive. I'm prepping to set myself up so I am actually able to be productive all day. And sometimes that productivity is taking a nap with my kitty because I need a little rest.
Yeah. And it's again recognizing you, who you are, how
That's right.
you operate, and again, I may be different than you. I may take
That's
that,
right.
have a different rhythm, and then if you and I and Tony and Thomas and Mary, we're working in a system, a team of folks, then there's a sense of, oh, I respect that you have a different rhythm from me. I acknowledge that, and what is it that you, I, and the five of us agree to do together to show grace and accommodation for those
That's right.
different rhythms.
So where we come from could be considered a disempowering belief. Like if you think you're only doing something when you're working, that's a disempowering belief. So there can be some of those. So anyway, why don't you go share your screen again like you were, because I just want to go through these and then I want to invite people to do something here. So then I was thinking about it, that there's also these disempowering beliefs to the right of that. Go to the, yeah. So also I put one down there. This is one of the things that really, yeah, this one that they're
This one.
disempowering beliefs to defend themselves. I see this all the time. I see people who complain that their approach is misunderstood. Oh yeah, well they just didn't understand that, as if that explains it away, when in fact it means no, you didn't say it clearly. So I know you can always write something that somebody can misunderstand. I know that's possible, but the question is, the moment you explain away the fact that it was misunderstood as their bad reading instead of your bad writing, you disempower yourself. One of the
Well,
things,
and
I'm sorry.
no, I was gonna, and it's the idea of being open to and being curious and say, hey, this is my assertion about this. This is my approach. This is why I have that approach.
No,
And say, oh no, I disagree. Well, what is it? Is it that you don't understand? What is it that you don't understand? And might we have a bit of a conversation about that? Because there may be others who, if we're talking about this, don't agree, don't understand, and they have different different disagreements
yeah.
within
Why
that.
don't you
So,
scroll down? Here's another one I learned early in my coaching career, that believing people who don't move forward are not open to new things. And the moment you believe that, see, now the reason you can't convince them is because, or they can't get them to see new ideas, it's on them. It's not on you. That's
yeah.
disempowering. By the way, some beliefs aren't, it's not a question of whether it's true. This is a big insight. Here, I want to put this in a special color.
Do I need to follow you here also?
You can, yeah. It's not a question of if it's true. Oh my God, you're not asking for truth. No, I'm not asking for truth here. It's a question of if It's useful.
Hmm.
This is another interpretation of George Box's, memorable quote, because I've had it interpreted now two different ways. The right way, the way I think, and the wrong way. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh, I found I before you go into George Box, I actually went out there. I found this Medium article that goes into a whole article about what you think Box is saying is not really what he was saying. So,
Well, yeah, that's the other opinion, but I think he's saying both things.
but yeah, okay. So I'm going to try and find the article as we go through
Yeah,
it.
find the article. I was reading that. And let me see if I can explain it, because he says all models are wrong, some are useful. And there are two ways to interpret this. And one way to interpret this is that this model is wrong. We know it's wrong, but it can be useful, so we're going to use it anyway. I think that was the point. And that isn't how I've often used it, but I think that's a very good idea. That, okay, yeah, I know it's wrong, but it works. But there's another way people use it incorrectly, was all models are wrong, so this is good enough. And therefore stop trying to make it better. See, I like to look at George Box's both ways. This model may not be right, but it's useful to use. That's good with me. But at the same time, this model is not quite right. I can be improving it because I know it's not perfect. And I think both of those are flip sides of the same coin. And I think both are useful. And yeah, if you find the article, it's a good article. Because somebody pointed that out to me and I read the article. They were saying I was taking George Box out of context. But again, I don't think I was. It's just a question of different interpretation.
Yeah.
So this was the big one for me, was that believing people who don't move forward are not open to new things. See what happens, and you all had this experience. That's the one to the right there, Ryan. You've all had this experience. You're talking to somebody and they just sound totally closed down. Now, sometimes it's because they're totally closed down. Sometimes that being totally closed down is happening because that's just the type of people they are. Very often it's due to two other things. One of two other things. One is you may be triggering something where they're kind of in an earlier similar situation, and that's really what's in front of them. And the other one is they just may not see something. So if you believe they're not open to new things, these three cases, you're stuck all the way. So let me put these three cases here. One, truly shut down. There are people who are truly shut down. Then you have to decide, is it worth your effort?
And what is it that's shutting them down? Again, do you have time? Do you care what's at stake? All those questions you ask about, what is this person willing to dance with me on that topic? Why are they shut down? What do they have in their past that caused them to hold on to this belief so tightly that is in contrast with your belief?
Yeah.
And so that's, yeah. I guess I'm just arguing the shutdown part.
Yeah. But you see this all the time, that people, oh yeah, they're this or they're that, and maybe they are, but who cares? You're not going to get any result from them if you take that attitude. And I've worked serious miracles at times. I'm not saying it happens all the time. I wish. But I know that it wouldn't have happened if I'd actually believed this person was a jerk. I've mentioned this, I've written it up in my book this time, that I had somebody else leading a course for me because I didn't have the certification to do it. I knew this stuff, but I had to be a certified person for it. And all my trainers are out at the town at the moment. And one guy was totally showing up as a complete jerk. I mean, he was horrible. He was being horrible. And the trainer there wanted to throw him out. And I said, well, I agree he's disruptive, but let me talk to him first. And I didn't talk to him like he was a jerk. Now, he was acting like a jerk, no doubt. But I had figured something else was going on for him because I'd seen this type of behavior before. I'd seen people sometime acting as a jerk when it was the system they were in, the company they were in. I remember one guy, my first big consulting gig, there was this guy who was always negative and always, oh, we can't do this. And then I realized, well, this is what systems thinking tells us, is sometimes the system, not sometimes, the system is impacting people, and sometimes people show up due to the system. So I just realized that was the problem. So
Deming, read Deming.
Read Deming, yeah. So anyway, so what I ended up doing then was I talked to this guy as if he was an honest, open individual. And yeah, I was shocked at the result. I didn't expect it. It turned out he had some beliefs that were holding him in place, and he thought we were violating his time and all that. And he ended up like it just shifted him, his personality. I mean, it was amazing. I actually suspect it was transforming for him. I'd never seen such a shift. I mean, he was so happy afterwards, and it was nothing changed. Just that he realized he didn't have to know, so he stopped expecting us to tell him everything.
Yeah.
So there are all these different beliefs. So let's go back to that screen. There's one last one. There's another disempowering belief, which is in the upper right corner of that box, which is belief saying you don't need something. Not to the right. Oh no, that's right. I skipped that one. Let me mention that one. Sorry. We accept things we shouldn't accept. It's like, people say, well, they're supposed to figure that out and they don't, or they're supposed to understand it and they don't, and that's okay. Or like, I'm going to be purposely incomplete, as if that makes any sense. Or where, the fact that you designed something to be this way doesn't make it a good thing. Okay, so you intentionally messed up. Ford intentionally left the gas tank liner out of the Pinto. That's what caused all the explosions. They knew it was going to cause explosions. They knew it. They figured it was less expensive to leave the gas liners out than the few explosions that were costing them a few $1,000,000. That was an intentional decision. The fact that you do something intentionally doesn't mean it's the right thing to do. It just means you're misunderstanding the situation, or you have different ethics in the situation. And then the last category I came up with was disempowering beliefs that you don't need something. Like, oh, you don't need theory. We can just get away with empiricism. And I'm not trying to land-based scrum here. You probably figure out a lot of these come from that. But it's kind of, in my mind, poison the space that we have all these disempowering beliefs. And we have to ask ourselves, is this belief real? Or is it just somebody else's opinion that I've somehow learned, that I've somehow taken on?
And believe it to be true and that it cannot be questioned.
Exactly. And it's worse than cannot be questioned, because that's kind of at least opens up the authority possibility. Maybe I can do it. It's like there's no point in questioning it because it is absolutely true. See, these are what kills you. It's funny. There's a statement I heard years and years ago, like in the 80s. An assumption is only an assumption when it isn't. Okay, now it's not, yeah, I know that's the reaction everybody got. What the hell? What is he talking about? Assumption is only an assumption when it isn't. So if I tell you something is an assumption, I'm assuming this. Now you know that's not quite true, right? Because I said it's an assumption. I'm assuming this.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, let me ask you this. Is that really what an assumption is? Is an assumption stating something as being true
accepting
where
that
you're
it is
saying
true?
you need to examine it. See, maybe there are two types of assumption. There are stated assumptions, but when there are, I guess there is a difference. There are stated assumptions where, okay, and then if this doesn't work out, I'll take a different path. But most of our assumptions, we never consciously made. We just knew it to be right.
Underlying assumptions, implicit assumptions, you might go into bias. It's not something you're asserting, you're making explicit.
It's just there. Yeah, the implicit assumptions, the tacit assumptions, but the assumptions that you know to be true are different than the assumptions you're stating as that you're stating as, well, I'm assuming this, or let's predict this and then see what happens, and then we'll come back and reevaluate this.
Well, it's also there's some other, we're talking about theory, and what is theory? And it's like, I am making an assertion. This is my hypothesis about this. And now let's test this hypothesis against this theory. So what can be learned from that testing? So that, how do you adjust? Oh, reflect and adjust. Hey, that's one of the principles in the Agile Manifesto, which is valid.
Yeah, except what you want to do is not just reflect and adjust your actions. You want to make sure you reflect, adjust your actions, and your understanding of reality. And that's not explicit in the manifesto, certainly not in Scrum when you have empiricism only. Adding this alone, what's the theory? Why does Agile actually work? Why does it work? Why is it that all this good stuff happens when you do what the Agile Manifesto tells you to? Although I actually think the AM is flawed, but I don't need to go into there now. In fact, that's another one. That's a disempowering belief. Oh, I just got another one here. Disempowering belief. A disempowering belief when you think you only have to look at part of something. Disempowering belief where you're only looking at part of something. Like the Agile Manifesto is very team centric and was so you're ending up focusing on the team. You're also focusing on software, but they obviously state that. But what if somehow we've assumed that it's okay to take the Agile Manifesto and apply it everywhere? Well, where did that assumption come from? Except we don't consciously talk about it. That's an example of all this. Anyway, you're getting an idea of what I'm talking about here in this list that I've made. Here, why don't you? I could keep talking about these. I want to. Maybe I should share my screen just to show one thing, and then you can share this board.
Yeah, I can share the link to the board in the comments.
And I'll tell you why. I tell you what I'd like to do. I've talked enough. Oh my God, Al just said he talked enough. I bet you all had the disempowering.
This is recorded. This is recorded. Believe me.
Yeah, I need that 30 seconds, and then people will just say, "Oh, you took it out of context."
7-second delay. Yeah. We don't have that.
Okay, so I've got a board, and I just wanted to show you. I'm not going to use this to talk about things so much, but so if you come down here on this board, you'll see this little thing. That's like a table of contents. If you click this, see this workspace. I made this workspace. This is where I want you to only do things in here, please. Okay. But I'll give you an exception. You can. See, you don't have to go to start here. I want to show you this. I have created, this is one of the things we do in Amplio University and the community of practice and in fact, I'm going to set this up to come at it from the problem point of view. Like, what are some disempowering beliefs? What are the problems it causes? What's the Amplio attitude? In other words, what does Amplio suggest? How to accomplish this? And what are some of the benefits? It's still a work in process. But I also have this thing called, excuse me. Oh, that's, I was looking at the disempowering beliefs over here, but I also have these problems and solutions. These are a lot of problems I see people have, their causes, their solutions, etc. So what I invite you to do is did you put that in the link?
Yeah, the Lucid board's in there. I'm going to put that on LinkedIn in just a second.
Access. You shouldn't have to sign in. Now, if you have a question over here in this section of the board, just put a comment in. All you do is you double click and it'll put something in there. It's okay if you do that. But what I really want you to do is, instead of looking over at what I did, is come over here, click this here, and they take the workspace. In fact, I just realized I can make this week in Amplio workspace. Come over in here, and I've set up a whole bunch of columns here. And why don't you, I'm going to put this down on the bottom because that's actually not pointed to any one of those.
So you want folks adding cards or maybe? Or
just now in this section, add new cards.
Okay. Or Post-its or whatever.
Let's just do that. I mean, you can add notes if you want to. I don't need to be sharing now. Right. You can add notes in the thing, but I thought it might be interesting that people talk about this or disagree with these. There was one other thing that's not a disempowering belief.
Okay.
There are these things called constraints. Okay.
Yep.
So constraints but constraints are a empowering belief in a weird sense, because they stop me from wasting time
Right.
trying to do something I can't do. So knowing constraints is a good thing. There are things that stop you from doing things that are not disempowering, because if they tell you, I shouldn't jump off a cliff because I can't fly, that's a good constraint to have, because I'll die if I do that. uh, unless it's Joe in the volcano, I get lucky, but I don't think I'm going to try that one.
Now you're making a callback there. That's revealing that we are men of a certain vintage.
Yeah, I suppose so. I like that movie. Nice rom-com. It's not for everybody, but it's a good movie. Okay, so you guys want to engage that are out there? I can keep rambling.
Yeah, we've
Or
got
Eric,
actually.
look. Let me actually. Here's something that'd be interesting to be chatting while they're doing this. So, I like, the beta codex thing. I actually have a feeling that I am learning about it. I'm actually reading 2 books now, so it might be a little while, but I'm going to be on a plane for a long time, so I might get a chance to read. It's Neil's book, but I also want to read Steve Pereira's book on flow engineering, because that's one of the books I suggested. And I think I would be surprised if I disagree with anything in Beta Codex, although I also believe that I will find some statements that are made that need refinement, such as, the whole idea of imposition on people. There are some impositions that you do need that are valid. They're just not the kind you're trying to get away from. Like, I don't believe in command and control imposition. That's something different.
Yeah,
Uh,
again, the large scale imposing mandates that are coming from a specific worldview about an organizational
yeah,
context, and
or
that coming from a set of assumptions and all that kind of stuff.
yeah. So this is one of the things that, there's this disempowering belief that this is good enough. I mean, there's a difference between recognizing I can deliver it now and get value, from saying this is good enough. I mean, maybe it is good enough, maybe it isn't good enough, but I should always be striving to get better until I see that I can get value elsewhere.
Well, good
So
enough for whom? Good
yes,
enough. I
exactly.
mean, that's the whole point. I mean, who's it for? What's it for? Why are you doing this thing? And do
Yeah.
they think it's good enough? And do you
So
agree?
So one of the things that happens is that when you start looking at these things, you start asking yourself, how is the world really set up? But the biggest one seems to me to be how there's so much missing. And it's almost like we're blind to things. Like, I started out with the diagnosis idea, but how does that even, I mean, I don't know. Somebody suggested I shouldn't call that insane, but I think it is. It's insane. It's like doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. And you see all these people pick up a an approach like, Scrum or Kanban or less, or safe or whatever, and they don't run a diagnosis first, and then all these same things happen again. Well, people misunderstand it, they get trapped into it, it doesn't fit
Well,
for
well,
purpose.
also think about this is that there's some assumptions from the folks who hire the consultants to do an intervention that, oh, I know this environment, I've done a little bit of research, I know that safe is the thing to do because the other folks in my industry are doing that. I'm going to have a safe guy to come in and do safe. You don't have to do any observation. I mean, I already know, and
Well, if
I'm
the person,
as an authorized leader.
yeah,
I can't believe you used that word. Someone with authority as a sponsor.
yeah, 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 and that's an issue. That's a real problem.
Yeah.
And so how
So
do we get around these is the thing. The first thing is to start noticing them, to start challenging yourself.
hmm.
The other
Well,
thing, in fact, I'm gonna pull up something here, but I'm not
can
sure.
we share you there? Or?
No, I'm not ready to yet. Let me see if I can
Okay.
find it. Uh,
And also, while Al's looking for that, remember you can go to the board either in the YouTube comments
yeah.
or
I'm
in the
hoping
LinkedIn
people
comments.
will. I see some
I
people.
think we have a couple people in there. I think
Yeah,
Tony's in
that's
there.
kind of what I wanted.
Fred might be in there. Again, if you want to comment, add to the limiting beliefs. I know I've got them. Al's got them. and you got them too. So talk about them. Let's put them out there and challenge each other and help each other learn, with each other, for each other.
Yeah, this is kind of the thing. So I did write something the other day. I called it the 7 Deadly Sins of Agile and how to break free of them. And basically, I mean, I could point them out to you, and that's good. And then you could start having a conversation. Like taking a team-centric view to me is a problem because you're not looking at where's the value coming from. The teams are often not directly exposed to the true value, the stakeholders that you need to be looking at. It's not just the customer, it's also the business end, or providing solutions prior to running a diagnosis.
And this is the whole idea of sub-optimizing a node of a network.
That's right.
Right.
And in fact, the team-centric view encourages silos of that nature. So when you find, so there are 2 questions here. In fact, this is nice because there are 2 questions. There are 2 questions to disempowering beliefs. One is, how do you discover them? Because we don't know they're disempowering, because nobody undertakes a disempowering belief knowing it's disempowering. They think it's true. So the first thing is, how do I discover these suckers? Well, I'll give you the quick answer. You don't self-discover these. You have to immerse yourself in a position where people are going to tell you they don't agree with you. You need to create safety for them to say that. Now, I know some people, it's funny because some people think think that I disengage with people because I have disagreed with them. Nothing is further from the truth. I have never once in my career disengaged with somebody on LinkedIn or blocked them or something because I disagreed with them. The problem is some people who disagree with me, that we disagree, they also then attack me personally, or they insult me, or they just kind of waste my time. And yes, I will either just disengage or block, but it's not because of disagreement. If you were ever to watch one of my Amplio University sessions or even the COP sessions, you'll see that I invite disagreement, and I usually say thank you.
Actually, and the ACEs as well. Right, you go in there
ACES is part of the Amplio University. That's right.
Yeah,
It's gotten to be a joke almost, and I'm expecting certain people to sometimes if I've said something and nobody responds, I'll call out a couple people that historically are always disagreeing with me.
Yeah, you send a test balloon out there and say,
it's like, do you agree with this?
Yeah.
So if you're going to discover, the way to discover what your assumptions are is it's like what? Water to the fish, air to the birds, and man to themselves. We cannot see our assumptions. So find somebody you like and somehow engage with them. If you're bringing somebody in for improvement, find a consultant. I would suggest you find someone whose work is based on flow, lean, and the theory of constraints, because otherwise they're going to have a lot of these. Read a few books like Flow Engineering and Goldratt's Rules of Flow are 2 that come to mind. The Choice is another really good one. Join the ACOP. It's free, because we'll do that. We just kicked off this 4-week study program. Or if you really want to get advanced, then there's Amplio University, and you'll see it in action, and you'll see how much fun we have. See, what's interesting, this is what's really interesting. I should make a picture of this. We talk about safety. So yes, you need safe environments, but if you're in a decent company, the most unsafe part of that environment is not outside of you, but it's between your ears. It's your conversation with yourself about yourself. You make a mistake. How many times you make a mistake? Do you say, oh, I made a mistake. That was good. Now I can learn something. Or how many times, oh, man, how did I do that again? Man, I'm stupid. I'm going to lose my job. So there's this idea of the safety is you have to make it safe for yourself. And this takes a long time because we were brought up as little kids. When we're little kids and we're brought up, we're very impressionable. We take on a lot of the attitudes of our parents. And if they say, oh, you shouldn't have done that, you're bad. See, you don't tell kids they're bad. You can say they did bad things, like tracking the mud in the house. Please don't track mud. That's bad behavior. See, that's different than them being bad. They're not bad. They made a mistake. And maybe they do have a bad attitude, but then talk about that, not the behavior. The behavior is one thing, and who they are is another thing. But we are ingrained in this. So when something goes wrong, we tend to berate ourselves. So the first thing you have to do is recognize that when you've learned something, you're actually in better shape now that you've learned it, even if it was learning you were doing it wrong. But we berate ourselves instead of saying, oh, wow, I just made a mistake. Now I can see how to solve the problem. That's
Give
just
yourself a little bit of grace. I mean, that's what you're talking about. Giving yourself grace to be able to
giving
say,
yourself grace. Even encourage the errors. Don't go out trying to make them, but notice errors are an opportunity. That takes all. You know what? I think I hit this when I was 71. I'm 72 now, so it's not something that happens fast. But no, I
folks,
really
don't worry. It can happen whenever.
Whenever. But that's really, yeah. Edison recognized this. That's right, Tony. It's really important. So these are things. How to avoid being trapped is one thing, but then look at the underlying beliefs, disbeliefs, and I talk about these 7 sins, and they're all based on certain underlying beliefs. So taking a team-centric view, well, no, switch, take a value stream view. Providing solutions prior to running a diagnosis, no, do a diagnosis. See, some of the disempowering beliefs, when you see them, it's just obvious. Oh, I know what to do because that's not right. Relying on empiricism only, no, take an attitude of I need theory. Yeah, right.
Well, this is, I mean, and this is also the thing that happens is like, it is, as I've seen in my experience, is that the question that is often not asked, most often not asked, is why are we doing Scrum on this team in the first place?
Yeah,
What is this solving? How is this helping the team? What are the team's rhythms? Do the team's rhythms need to be changed in this way? What might be an approach that would be fit for purpose? I think this is,
right.
again, this is why for me that the Amplio work makes a lot of sense.
Yeah,
Is because you can observe and decide which of these pieces will get you where you want to go as a team and as a product development team or as a team of teams.
yeah. Now, sometimes you open, yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's part of what, and I've talked about this. I've actually said that there are places Scrum works extremely well, but nobody, when you say, oh, it works to solve complex problems, great, but it doesn't work to solve all complex problems. There's context for it. So keep going. Saying it works to solve complex problems when you're in knowledge work is like saying it works better. It works well when people are breathing. I would say most methods work well when people are breathing than when they're dead. It doesn't give you much, doesn't limit it much out. But there's sometimes I was just reading through the 7 deadly sins, and number 5 is being purposely incomplete. Results is okay. It's not okay. So that's a belief that's not okay because people have to reinvent. Now, here's the issue with this: you got to recognize some.
Well, maybe. Well, I want to stop there for saying purposefully incomplete with an acceptance that there can be additions, there can be modifications.
Yeah.
And
No,
this is the whole thing. This is the whole thing. Purposely incomplete and immutable, which is
Okay,
that's
well, you're
the thing
bringing
that
up
gets
another. That's number 6.
We don't have to go to immutable. We don't have to go to immutable.
That's actually number 6 in the list. But no, let me talk about purposely incomplete. Like everything is incomplete. There's no body of knowledge that expresses everything. But are we aiming for incomplete or are we aiming for sufficient? But my point was this. Some disempowering beliefs, when you take them off, you realize, well, how the hell do I do that? How do I make it sufficient? See, this is not an easy task. I've been working on this. I started working on this back in 2006. I remember when I started working on this because we had been dead objectives. We had been having difficulty getting scale. And back in the day, scale was 3 teams. We had been having difficulty to get scale. 4, 5. Oh, wow, you're good. And what I noticed is that we had ways to do it that made it work, at that scale real easy. It's not hard at all. And that I started to notice that the different consultants I had at Net Objectives, because I gave them freedom to work how they wanted to. I was interested in the results. The results were what I was saying you have to get to, but how you get there was up to them. I mean, these were smart people. I mean, what am I going to tell them how to do stuff? I was learning more from them, I think, than they were learning from me. So
We gotta have some of those folks in this forum at some point. It may be quite interesting, or
that
to
could be,
acknowledge their contribution to
yeah, it could
your
be
learning.
interesting actually. This goes back a long way. But
Might be.
anyway, the point is that this is not an easy task. I went through about literally 5 or 6 different generations of structure to get to a point where Amplio, I'm very confident Amplio is the right structure, but I mean, it's not the first generation. It built off, oh my goodness, the inflection point system. I had 2 versions of that. There were 2 or 3, 4 things. Flex that I took to the PMI. That's something I'd built at Net Objectives as well. Amplio is like the 5th or 6th generation. And the reason it's the one I'm actually feeling comfortable with, it's designed to grow and change. The others were as well, but not as well as Amplio because it didn't have quite the foundation. I needed what I learned from Goldratt to do this. But anyway, it's a difficult problem to make something purposely sufficient. It's like it's really easy to write math tables, like addition tables, but it's harder to teach someone how to do addition. So that's a tough problem. Now there are ways to do this, and we've actually got this structured in Amplio about the foundations, and then what capabilities do you need, and then how do you find your best practice in your situation. And we've worked this all out. We're filling it in. It's taken me 3 years on top of the 15 years before that. Yeah, that's 15 years before that. So this is not an easy problem. So sometimes you get rid of a disempowering belief, and then it's, oh my God, what do I do now?
It totally tears apart everything.
It can. And if you're trying to, I'm
Th-
sorry.
this- oh God, I'm trying to think. I forget where I heard this. It was a book I was reading on change by Damon Santola. Great book, by the way, about complex contagion versus simple contagion about ideas. He mentioned that in this realm of beliefs and challenging one's beliefs is Wittgenstein, the great
Oh yeah.
Wittgenstein.
Yeah, I love him.
Had this. I had this particular theory about knowledge and the way people learn, and that constructing one's reality, and then that became the assumed standard of inquiry for philosophy as it was studied around the world. And then later on, and it said, this is the most fundamental theory of philosophy. Then later on, he said, don't believe that, it's crap. I'm going somewhere else with it. And I'm like, and even to this day, there are folks that are so committed to Wittgenstein's first theorem. I forget what it's called.
I've got to read this. I love Wittgenstein. Of course, he said once you understood him, you knew that's not what he was talking about. So, it opens the door.
Probably George Box, the Al Shalloway of the world, maybe that kind of thing.
Yeah, he was pretty far out there, but I thought it was interesting. But yeah, I see this here. I don't think I've ever bought this. So I think I'm going to put this on my reading list because I like it. It's good rated. How to change, how to make big things happen. I'll get it as an audio book because it looks like, or does it have a lot of diagrams? Is it one I could listen to?
I've only read it as an audiobook. It's very, very
okay, good.
Very
I love audio.
Very interesting.
See, this is a limiting. I'll give you a quick limiting belief that I hear around me all the time. Commuting is a waste of time. Not the way I do it. I used to commute. One of my first consulting gigs, I lived in East Seattle, actually east of Seattle, and I had to go down to Tacoma, which was a 45-minute commute each way. And I don't like sitting idle, as you might tell. You talk about texting while driving is dangerous. Operating a full computer system, writing a LinkedIn blog is much worse. No, I'm kidding.
I'm thankful that you made it through that and that you're here today.
No, I didn't mind the drive at all. I would listen to audiobooks. I'd listen to tapes the whole time. It was very relaxing. I was saying, look, I'm getting in the car. When I get to where I'm going, I'll be there. And I would, if I needed to get to work by a certain time, which I really didn't need to because I was mostly doing it by myself. But if I needed to be there, well, I want to go for 8, but if I'm there by 8:30, it's okay. Then I would leave at like 7:15 and I wouldn't worry about it. See, it's all the other stress you add to it. And was it productive? Absolutely productive. I was listening to all sorts of self-help tapes at that time. They didn't have quite audio books. This was back in 99. So I didn't have the quite audiobook library I have now.
You had 10 cassettes that you
Yeah. It was throw the cassette in. But now I have, I'm in whatever you call it, audiobooks. And I listen to things all the time. And sometimes I say, oh, let's just drive because it's fun. And sometimes I don't want to think at all. And I drive sort of not doing driving meditation. I got to pay attention, but I'm not thinking about anything. And that's, oh, this is relaxing. I did that just the other day. I'm overwhelmed. Let's just drive. I'll get there. I'll get what I need done. I'll come back and I'll be all good. So we limit how we can learn. And this is the point. We limit what our lives can be like. And now you can go and I've resisted this, but I'm going to mention it. I don't talk usually about, life coaching in my work because that's not why people are coming to me. But they're the same disempowering beliefs we have in our life about what we need and all that. And once you start looking at these, you find that it's hard to find them by yourself. It's one of the reasons that, it's great to have a partner, have a life coach. But it just occurred to me, some weird thought, my mind just jumped to. People have been debating about pair programming. Well, let me tell you this. I have done pair programming. I've also done pair working, where I learned that pair programming was a good idea back in it was 96. At the time, I was both CIO and CTO for they were a hair salon products company, but they'd bought my company, which I had the best hair salon product software at the time. So I was the CTO for that, and I was the CIO for the hair salon company because they had the whole inventory control. I was a busy guy. And I was saying, man, I got to hire somebody to help me. So I hired somebody to help me, and I said, wait a moment, I didn't think of something. Nobody else can train this guy but me, and I'm too busy to train him.
Oops.
Exactly. Crap. Yeah, exactly. You were there. That's exactly what my thought was.
Boy, that was a tough gig, Al.
I think it was crap and then oops. I'm not sure what the order was, but those two came up. So I thought about it.
Sugar.
Yeah, exactly. Some choice words. So I thought about it, and I was really insightful. I realized just letting him sit in his desk, not doing anything, was not going to get him any place. So what I realized, the only thing I could do was let him sit next to me, and I would pair. I wouldn't really expect any contribution from him, but I figured, well, I can just kind of turn my thought process on loudspeaker. And I thought, okay, look, worst case, it'll slow me down 10, 15%, but he'll see what I'm doing. He'll understand the system and he'll learn. And that was my expectation. I'm going to pay 10, 15% to just talk as I work. But here's what happened. I would talk as I worked, and I would say, and we're doing this. And then I was about to say because, sometimes I would say because, but before I said what followed the because, I realized it was wrong. Wait a moment. That was an assumption. So what I found was, in taking the 10 to 20%, 10, 15% of talking to the guy, slowing me down, I was saving about a third. I was saving about a third of my time by seeing the assumptions I'd been making. And I just started going real fast or faster. I was going faster by talking to him. See, now this wasn't going faster by slowing down. I was busy the whole time, but I was conveying my assumptions and he was seeing them. So pairing, this is the whole idea of pairing. Look, typing the code is not the bottleneck. You don't have one person doing it, another person watching. When you pair program, what you're doing, if somebody's at the keyboard, they're typing, but both of you are discussing the design, the test criteria, what you're trying to do, why you're trying to do it. And if you're not talking back and forth, then it's one person's thinking about one thing and the other person's thinking about the other thing. Now, I'll tell you why I think pair programming is not very popular, because I ran into this. Most developers do not really want to be talking to people while they're programming. They got into programming because they didn't want to talk to people. I'm speaking from personal experience here.
Many did, yeah.
I'm sorry, what?
A pattern that you have witnessed.
A pattern I've witnessed. A lot of people don't like pair programming. See, I shouldn't say developers. People will not tell you what they will tell you what sells. So nobody's going to say, I don't want to pair program because I don't like talking to people while I work. They'll say, I don't like pair programming because it slows me down. Oh, yeah, that makes sense. Now, by the way, I'm not saying everybody should do paired programming, because if you don't like it, it might slow you down, but it's not because it's not a good way of doing it. I don't believe in imposing paired programming unless that's the corporate agreement on how you work. Like at Menlo Innovations, that's how they work. If you don't want to pair program, don't work there.
Well, this is about the game theory too. This is
Yeah.
about, okay, I say
Well, you got to
this is
agree to
the
the
goal.
game.
Right.
If
Exactly.
they're playing this game, don't go there. If Menlo Innovations does paired programming, they're an XP shop. They do paired programming, and they find it works. They have a process that works, and they let you know this is what you're coming into. So it's by choice. Don't go there if you don't like doing this. And there are, other things I would mandate if I had a software company is you better follow good coding qualities. I don't want you here if you don't. And if it slows you down, then I'm willing to pay the price for it slowing you down while you're learning. I'm okay with that. But you don't get a choice to write code and then try to test it later. I know that doesn't work.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we are all, I can't believe we are already at an hour. And
one last thing, since I mentioned pairing, just real quick. So this is what I did when I put XP into places or help people do XP. And I knew people, they don't want to pair every day. Oh my goodness. And by the way, there are times I don't like pairing. There are times I just need to go off in a room and think. So what I would say is do this. The way you can start pairing is don't make it all pairing or not pairing. Do like every day, do an hour of pairing, or every other day, do an hour of pairing, and see what happens. And maybe people need to not pair sometime and to pair sometime. And by the way, I've actually never done mobbing per se, but I can see why it works.
Yeah.
And I love Woody's and you should, any chance you have a chance to listen to him talk, go for Woody. And it's not like Woody and I agree about everything, but we agree on most stuff. But the point is, he's just a really smart, open, learning person that he loves to interact with. Anyway, yeah, I know it's been an hour. That felt like that to me. It's just been fun conversation.
Yeah, and we're gonna be gone for a few weeks. So we're gonna be taking a break. I got a gig, so who knows if that's how that's gonna go to. But I intend to be continuing to do this whenever we can do it and rebroadcast and when we go.
Yeah, and if you want more, join the ACOP.
Exactly.
It's
Let me put that up in the banner. The link to the ACOP. Also, Amplio University.
Oh, I didn't know Woody had written that book. That's great. Yeah, I'm probably not going to read it, to be candid, but I highly recommend it.
Yeah, well, maybe not on this trip. On this,
I got now 2 books to read. Okay,
so
no, I got 3 books to read. I got 3 books to read.
So successengineering.works/ACOP. Easy
That'll
place
do it.
to
Yeah,
get
we got a
there.
redirection.
And it's free. Well, and at this point for the next several weeks, it's going to be on the self-study basis.
Yeah, but it's there's a lot to learn on the self-study. There'll be a lot you can learn. See, here's the thing. Self-study doesn't mean you don't get questions answered and asked. This is not like just an online, you take a workshop where nobody's talking to you. We'll talk, and we have when you join, it'll also talk about the LinkedIn user group that you can get in and ask questions. We get some good dialogues there. It's starting to pick up some. So
yeah, and again, you're very interactive with folks on LinkedIn, and you engage.
Ask me questions. Ask me questions.
You don't have to agree. You don't have to agree with.
I prefer you not agree with me.
But engage, and that's how learning.
Look, if you want somebody to agree with you on LinkedIn, I know a company that for $5 an hour, they will get online and LinkedIn and say, "Oh, that is the most amazing. You're so brilliant." In fact, maybe that's not a bad idea.
Hey,
I should offer this as a service.
Don't tell anybody.
I'm a software developer, and you have changed my entire life. $5 an hour, they'll do this.
It's all the the testimonials. You buy some testimonials.
See, agreement feels good, but you learn a little bit from it sometimes, depending on who agrees with you. Like there's some people who, if I normally am at loggerheads with them and they agree with me, then that feels good. Or if they're an authority and they agree with me, then that's not just feeling good. And that loggerheads, that's not just feeling good, that's feeling good. And there's some validation because I've enrolled people. But most of the time, agreement is just to feel good. Not that it's anything wrong, but disagreement that then you get insights from is much better. Anyway, I've gone over, and thanks, Ryan. And I'll miss y'all, but I'll be back, and I'm available online. I intentionally am staying a little longer so I can do a little pots of work as I go. So I'll be in touch.
All right. Well, fantastic as always. Great time. It's fun to be here and learn and dance here, and it's always a great time. I'll be so sad that we won't be doing this every week until
But you'll be
later on.
busy.
I'll be busy, hopefully, and then we'll all keep each other busy. So, all right, folks, thank you for the precious gift of your time, attention, and grace. Give it to yourself, give it to us, and we will all be in it together, with us, for us. So, see you later.
Take care.